Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation is not going to be long. I'm going to try my best to make sure it's not very long. Yet it is very informative in what we want to talk about and what we want to present for edification purposes. This, brothers and sisters, will start off with a speech that was delivered in a college in New York. And from that point, we'll go to some sources and books and reference material. All right. So without any further ado, I hope everybody is well. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share the video, brothers and sisters. All right. If you look at the title, let's understand the points. Are we black? That's a question, brothers and sisters, that is asked because that is a term that many of us have been used to saying. We are used to saying one is black. We are used to saying one is melanated. We are used to saying that we are these different kind of categories in names, which are actually, when you get right down into it, adjectives. Adjectives, brothers and sisters, describe a noun. A noun is a person, place, a thing. So we as a people, as any other people, fall under the category of a noun and not simply an adjective. Okay, so now I want to state this. I know on this particular channel that in many cases I have spoken upon and stated people of color, black people, and so forth and so on. You understand? But without any further ado, we want to emphasize on why that term is used is only for clarity purposes so we know who we're talking about and who we attempted to address. Kaasher ani medaber be'ibrit, Lola Kul Kim Yabinu Kol Milai. What I just stated is if I were to sit there and speak in Hebrew, many people will not understand. So, in order to reach your audience, or in order to reach the audience, in order to reach the people who respect you enough to be your audience or the audience, brothers and sisters, you might want to have to sit there and explain certain things according to their understanding. So that's why in the past we may have seen and might see in the future the terminology black in regards with our people. All right. So somebody had posted in the room in regards to another woman shot by the police in Texas. This is something that we wanted to sit there and kind of address. All right. Also, my brothers and sisters, not a surprise video. So this is something we want to point out in that particular case for edification purposes. All right. Not really like surprise video. This is something that was worked on for the past 2 or 3 days to put together. All right. But in regards real quick to the situation that happened in Texas, brothers and sisters, we should begin to see, know, and understand the police have not been, were not our friends. We do know that the police department, brothers and sisters, are they, all right, who actually took the job of the Irish slave runners from the 1800s. The people that were sent out, say, in the 1850s as slave catchers, they later on, being the Irish, were the people who become your immediate police department in the early 20th century. So with that being the case, this is something we want to point out in that particular edification purposes. All right, there have been unfortunate cases in which people have called the police and they wind up being the ones getting hurt. There have been a situation, I can say, in New York when they had a thing called 100 blacks in law enforcement. That just goes to show you that you're separated even from the general populace, even when you are said cop. You understand? Back in the 1960s, there was a chant by the Panthers or some other group, correct me if I'm wrong about the name of the group, that their chant used to be, no more pigs in our community, no more pigs in our community. The police department, brothers and sisters, have not been on the good side of our people. Have not been and never will be. When you hear the police speaking about in their training about protecting the have from the have-nots, when you speak about the police department, brothers and sisters, when they go to their shooting range, and the image, and 9 times out of 10 that they're shooting at is an image of what is considered, quote, a black figure. You understand? And so this is something, brothers and sisters, the mentality of many police, not, and I'm not even going to go with the colloquial nonsense of not all of them, because the ones who are, quote, not like the ones that did the situation in Texas, that are not like the ones that did the situation in California with Rodney King, that are not like the situation that did the situation with Amadou Diallo in New York, they don't seem to be standing up for the black populace. And then you have some people, brothers and sisters, who say, well, you know what, there's white people, Caucasians that are attacked by the police. How is that supposed to fix the problem between black men and women and the police? How is that supposed to be a solution to the situation? Telling me that white people are attacked by the police is saying, excuse me, nigga, don't worry about what happened to you because it happens to them as well. What you have done by sitting up there talking about, well, it's not always reported like what happened with Mike Brown and so forth and so on. What you've done is you attempted to pacify people by saying somebody else gets hurt. So you can't speak about their own righteousness. So what you have to do is just throw, well, white people are victims as well. How is that helping me as a person to know that somebody else is a victim? How are you helping the situation? This is how you know a person's spirit when it's based upon wickedness. You understand? So, without any further ado, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and get into this kind of situation about whether or not our name is properly, quote unquote, called black. Next slide, please. Speech presented at a college in 2001. At this time, we will speak on the plight and true identity of our people, the so-called blacks. This plight is a mental plight, a mental condition, mind manipulation and brain poisoning. It began when our ancestors were kidnapped from Western Africa and brought to the Americas in chains and unsanitary ships. So now, brothers and sisters, if we want to sit there and look at this, at the highlighter aspect, all right, brought to the Americas. What do we mean by the Americas? We mean what is commonly referred to as North and South America, brothers and sisters. Of every 100 ships that were used, 30 went to what you call North America. Pardon me. Of the 100 slave ships, I stand to be corrected, 6 came to what we call the United States, and 30 went to Brazil. I stand corrected, pardon that. So what are we pointing out, brothers and sisters, is that the bulk, the majority of the people who were kidnapped during what is referred to as the AST, or the Atlantic slave trade, the majority of them went to Brazil. This is why you find a great population of people of color in Brazil to this day. All right? When you say that you have ancestors who were already here, where is here? Because it's interesting, brother, you mentioned that, because that is what we're going to talk about as well. The concept and the teaching of that. So I'm going to ask you to explain in the presentation here. when you say that you have ancestors who were already here, where is here that you're talking about? All right, so let me ask this question. When we hear the statement, because I've been hearing this for some time now, that we were already here, right? And I'm speaking in general when I say this. Is that not the same point and premise of saying there are white people who are attacked by the police when we are talking about they who were kidnapped from Western Africa? If the subject matter is talking about the people who were kidnapped from Western Africa, how do we look then saying we were already here? You see, the reason why I'm asking that question to the people in the chat and those who may listen later on is I'm not saying that there were no people of color anywhere from Malaysia, Africa, Asia, Germany, and as well as what we call the West Indies. I did a presentation some time ago showing the quote unquote melanated or dark people that Christopher Columbus spoke of. How does that not sound the same? Because this, my friend, is saying about a speech that was presented at a college. It began when our ancestors were kidnapped from Western Africa. So let's say I have some that was, quote, already here and some from Western Africa. I'm not saying the hell with those who were already here. I'm saying I'm talking about a specific part of their ancestry. I'm not denying another part. I'm just speaking about the aspect of what a particular thing that has been downplayed for far too long. So if we're beginning by saying it began when our ancestors were kidnapped from Western Africa and brought to the Americas, and then we hear, well, we was already here, how does that fit in with the fact that many people were kidnapped from Western Africa? That's why I'm asking, when people say that black people are attacked by police, and then we hear, well, white people are attacked by police, that's not the genre of the convo. But in continuing on, it says in chains in unsanitary ships. That's what we were talking about. If you go into a situation about what happened with the gentleman, trying to remember the name, Amerigo Vespucci, as well as Columbus, certainly in his second voyage back to Europe, he brought natives back to Europe. So the slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade, went first north, then west, and also eastern. So that, if we go into the video about from Ghana to Georgia, I sat there and explained in that particular aspect what that was about. However, in this particular case, in this particular presentation, before we even got into the genre of the Atlantic slave trade going east and west, I was speaking about where it began. So now, with that, often it is said the slaves were taken across the ocean. This, however, is not true. The people taken across the ocean were not slaves. They were captives. They were made into slaves when they were landed. Now, if you look, for instance, take Brazil, for instance, the people that were shipped there by the Portuguese and the Dutch from Western Africa as well as Angola to Brazil, they intermarried and mingled with the natives that were in Brazil greatly. The other matter is, how is it that you had herbs, or that is to say that which is medicinal purposes, coming from Africa, and then when the people in Brazil used to use it, the quote unquote Indians in Brazil used to sit there and say, this is for this, and the quote unquote African shipped to Brazil would say, this is what we did, quote, back home. So the unity that happened under the aspect of they who were already indigenous or autonomous to the Western Hemisphere, as well as those who were brought over from the Eastern Hemisphere, is not an argument or a disagreement that I'm trying to present in this particular case. All right, so let's continue. Speech presented, slide part 2. As stated, this is something I presented when I was in college back in 2001. Those who rebelled against the chattel enslavement were slain. Those of the first generation were slain. They could not and would not be broken. Now, when we say, brothers and sisters, the aspect of could not and would not be broken, we're speaking about the aspect of, for instance, in Barbados, when the people were used to be shipped over there and to be, quote, broken. When you read, for instance, okay, let's go in. The Willie Lynch speech and letter lets us know that future generations were focused on the children. When you read the Willie Lynch letter, right? It tells you that we, the oppressors, we focus on future generations. See, they knew that first generation, say the spirit of the Maroons, the spirit of the Coromantee, the spirit of the warrior, is not going to sit there and just, oh, okay, I'm now going to sit there and cut the sugar cane and pick this tobacco and pick the cotton and the indigo that they used to use in Martinique. That's not going to work with that first generation. So they had to sit there and just use, quote, that first generation to be, quote unquote, breeders, the ones that didn't commit suicide, and then sit there and just work on the future generations. That was a plan that they have devised. This man sits there and thinks futuristic, not immediate. And so now, looking at that, the enslavers began to run tests on the captives to make them slaves. They used the tactics of, quote, divide and conquer. Love your enemy. Turn the other cheek. If you love those who love you, what good have you? Doctrine. Brothers and sisters, the reason why that was presented in that particular stance is because if you're asking if you love those who love you, what good have you? The good that you have is unity. That's the good. But in order to sit there and make the people feel that if you are united, they will say that you are one term, this, another term, this. You are bigot, you're a racist, you're a segregationalist. They create these kind of terms that, as even as Hebrews, there's no Hebrew word for racist. So if it can't even be equated in your language, that means it's only equated in somebody else's language, which means that it's up to somebody else's thought on what they think of you. And we already know, as grown men and women, other people's thoughts to us should not even matter. So why is it on job sites, you have the Irish hire the Irish, the Italian hire the Italian, but when we get there, we feel we got to hire him, her, and her, so forth and so on, so we won't be called racist. That's a terminology that has been used to sit there and stifle and stymie us as a people from uniting. This is why the guy, when he asked the man, may he rest in peace, Malcolm X, why do you teach hate? Why do you teach black superior? I'm not teaching black superiority. I was sitting up there talking about we need to run our own stores. That's hatred. Segregation, all right, was not the best option. Now, speaking in regards quickly with the Hebrew, right, the word to integrate, pardon me, wow, I mean, integration was not. Typo. Segregation was actually a little better. See, that's the opposite. I stand corrected on self. Now, the Hebrew word for integrate, brothers and sisters, is the same Hebrew root word lahad. All right, so we could gain some understanding of what we're talking about for edification purposes, right? It's the same word we see here, lamed, kaf, and dalet, lakad. The word lakad, brothers and sisters, means to integrate. And the word lakud means captivity. So they refer to it in certain social circles as what? Cultural diffusion. But what you're doing is you are diffusing your own culture. That's what's going on in a nutshell. Let's go on, if you will, to the next slide. Speech presented, part 3. Our people were given new names, a new culture, and a new code of ethics, which taught that right is right and black is ugly. Our ancestors were taught to hate themselves. This resulted in a family structure being broken. The men were humiliated and dehumanized, and the females were left without the male image of protection. The females raised their daughters to be, quote, independent and no need for a family. And there are some who actually still feel that way, believe it or not. Make your money, do you, and make sure men don't know your business. And if people think I'm talking on the aspect, oh, that just seems one-sided, let's see. She raises her sons to fight and work for someone else. Did you know recently you had a group of our people that were happy because the military lifted the ban on dreadlocks? Yes, I now can sit there and take a chance to get my legs blown off as long as I'm able to sit there and keep my dreads. This is the mentality that says she raises her sons to fight and work for someone else. This is why when we were talking before about the aspect of the family structure that is needed. Next slide, please. Speech presented, part 4. It is not good for our people to be Americans. This is because it shows disrespect for the millions of our ancestors who were plundered and devastated by the European, while spreading his ways of rape, murder, robbery, idolatry, swine eating, or which goes against the commandments of the Bible. Our true name has been replaced with others. Our true name is Yisrael, or Israel in the English transliteration. Hosea 4 verse 6 in the Bible says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. We have the marks of the people of the Israelites, the sign that Deuteronomy 28:46 speaks of. So when it says it shall be upon you and upon thy seed, this is how you can tell by going through what is understood as the process of elimination. When you look at world history, and then you look at the people who fit the curses of Deuteronomy 28, not too hard to figure out who is who. You understand? So any questions or comments concerning what we've gone over, please feel free to type it in. Next slide, please. This is from a meme I saw online. Land of the thief, home of the slave. They'll tell you this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. But brothers and sisters, we know this is the land of the thief. How? Because the treaties that were made were not honored. Therefore, you're a liar. And we already know lying and stealing go hand in hand. Because if you will lie, you will steal to try to make sure your lie is believed. And if you a thief, you will lie about being such. So lying and thieving go hand in hand, brothers and sisters. So now this is, as stated, the home of the slave. Now, the reason why I state that, brothers and sisters, is because, as pointed out earlier, the people that were being transported or captive, brothers and sisters, in the ships were not slaves. They were captives. They were, quote, broken in the Western Hemisphere to be made into slaves. So this is something, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and point out for edification purposes. All right? And that's, guys, like I was saying, brothers and sisters, this is a meme that I saw online. Next slide. What a man in the East says of blacks in the West. This is Ali Jida, a man who was interviewed over 10 years ago. Now, the interview, brothers and sisters, will be put in the description when this is uploaded on BET over 10 years ago, right? Who stated that his people, the people of the land of Israel, would have been in the land but were removed from the land, scattered into Africa, then taken to the United States. That's what that man that you see right there stated on BET when he was being interviewed. We're going to put that inside the description when this is uploaded. All right. Next slide, please. Deuteronomy 28, verse 37. That's the portion, brothers and sisters, when you get into the scriptures, and we want to read that, if we will, right? Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37. And it says, and that shall become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all the peoples, whether the Lord shall lead thee away. This astonishment means that everybody will look at the Israelites and be astonished at how a people can be oppressed and slay one another, astonished at how can we happily fight their wars and are still oppressed in America as in World War II or Vietnam, astonished at how we commit genocide on ourselves, profane ourselves, etc. We have become a proverb, such as N-word, the N-word in the ghetto are like crabs in the barrel. If you're white, you're right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, get back. N-word, the N-word, love watermelon, chicken, and women. The N-word people are the color of feces. We have become bywords, such as the N-word, black, coon, spade, spear chucker, moonshine, spick, African American, Afro American, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Haitian, Dominican, Guyanese, etc. The Most High said this will happen to us, the scattered tribes of Israel. It was not until 1988 that the term, quote, African American was used by us, given to us by Jesse Jackson as a name, quote, legally. Some say that slave records called us African Americans. However, it is still a name given to a people by another people. What I just read concerning this wasn't inside the PowerPoint. It's part of the book that I wrote called Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68 concerning that. We are not niggas, colored, Afros, Africans, Afro-Americans, African Americans, blacks, black people, etc. So to the answer to the question, are we black by land, language, and culture? No. Next slide, please. The plan was cunning. By design, planning, and cunning, we are the only people whose ancestors came from another land, and their descendants do not bear the name of their ancestors. All other people who have migrated to the United States still prefix before their Western country of nationality the name of their ancestral nationality. But when it comes to our people, we have been given new names that our people never knew or heard of. This is by master design. Take away from a people their story, legacy, and culture, and you have a dead, worthless, zombie-like people only fit to be eternal slaves. If the slave is allowed to read the Bible, then the sin rests upon the abolitionist, which would make it a book of blood, not making a Christian but a demon. This last part here that you see all in caps, brothers and sisters, comes from the book called Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race by Edward W. Bladden. That's a book you can get online. Next slide. Oh, we want to highlight something, brothers and sisters. All right? We want to highlight something. All right? Who have migrated to the United States, still prefix before their Western country of nationality the name of their ancestral nationality, aka Chinese American, Japanese American, Korean American. See? Italian American, Russian American. We are simply called an adjective. In most cases, you're black. So let's look at this, brothers and sisters. You see what's being drawn there, right? With the pen. You see what color that is? That's black. That's not us. That's an adjective. Again, for those who joined the room, the reason why, nonetheless, we use that in order to reach our people is because that's the information that they understand for edification purposes. The point and part of this presentation, brothers and sisters, is that we want to elevate and bring out what we are teaching as the house of Israel concerning that kind of aspect. All right? Any questions or comments concerning this, please feel free to put it inside the comment section here. All right? Next slide. Let's understand a point. Let's get the laser pointer. There is no land called black, N-word, colored, thus there can be no people called such by nationality. During the Punic Wars, debated among many, the term Africa was given to that continent by Europeans. Will Durant states that the Romans placed the name Africa to that place. Adrian Goldsworthy states Africanus, that is to say Scipio Africanus, who was against Hannibal, adopted the name from natives of that land. See, so that just goes to show you, you got one person saying that Africa, the continent, was named by the Europeans. Then you got another person saying that the term Africanus was adopted to the Europeans by the people of said Africans. So let's go on. Calling the continent Al-Kibalan is given that place from the Arabs. Calling the continent Africa after Ephir, the son of Abraham, is to say the Hebrews named that vast land. So we can see that the name Africa is debated among many on where is the origin of such. One say, well, it was named, according to Josephus, that Africa was named after a descendant of Abraham. Then there are some who are saying that Africa was named by Scipio Africanus. Then there are some who are saying that it was already named Africa, and the gentleman who fought in the Second Punic War against Hannibal, brothers and sisters, was named that by, or he adopted the name from said black people. So what is the truth concerning the origin of the name Africa? That's something that I'm presenting and asking in this particular case. All right? Anybody have any suggestions or understandings? Please feel free to comment or concerning that. Next slide, please. From the notes. There is no language on earth called black. There is no country on earth called black. Black, even in job applications, is with a lowercase b, not a capital B, which shows it is not a proper term to call a person. You ever notice that when you look at job applications? When they say African American / black? That's what you're saying, Mr. Moss. Josephus states that it was named after the descendants of Abraham. Yeah, that we pointed that out. So are we to say that Josephus was right? Are we to say, brothers and sisters, that Will Durant was right? Are we to say that Adrian Goldsworthy was right? Are we to say that it was named after the Arabs? The point I'm emphasizing on is that vast land, unless a person traveled from one end of it to the other, somebody else, such as colonialists, sat there and was the one who spread that term or whatever that name was to that place in vast ways. So that's something I just want to point out in that particular regard. All right. It's all love, my brother. When you say one of the sources I was talking about. No debate, Aki. It's all love. All right? Not exposing somebody's business. Mr. Morse is one of the brothers that encouraged me to start flying. But that's another subject. All right, let's go on. Calling people black is to say that one is sinister, dirty, soiled, from soot, cheerless, depressing, having no light. The skin color of a person does not determine one's ethnicity. The skin color of the Zulu, Tanzanian, Ghanaian may be the same, but they are not the same people. The skin color of the Portuguese, English, and Swedish may be the same, yet they are not the same people. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? You can't sit there and just say, oh, this person is this color, so that means that must be you. That's not always too accurate. All right? Next slide, please. Reasoning. The true flesh and seed Israelites never had a problem among themselves in dealing with the multicolored shades of their people. We only see this as a problem when we view ourselves through the eyes of those who hate us. In previous videos, we discussed that the Israelites migrated to places in continental Africa. A list of those videos will be in the description of the presentation here. Next slide, please. On Lulu.com, the book here, this is the book I was reading from earlier. All right, Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 to 68. History Untold to the Masters by self, Yeshaya Yisrael. You can go to Lulu.com, brothers, sisters, and go to bookstore and type in my name, Yeshaya Yisrael, or Deuteronomy 28, and this will come up as part of those books that are online. The Negro College Library stated that if the Periplus of Hanno is read, one will see evidence of the fact that people from Carthage, which is in Tunisia, northern Africa, migrated to what is now Gambia. Gambia is in, brothers and sisters, Western Africa. The people of Israel certainly were those people who migrated from the land of Israel to the place that later became Carthage. And prior to the time of Hasdrubal, Hasdrubal was the uncle, brothers and sisters. Hasdrubal was the uncle of Hannibal, so we can understand what we're talking about. They migrated to the area of the Gambia. We know what happened in time. So what we're presenting, if you look at, we want to highlight certain aspects, brothers and sisters, all right, in this particular case, highlighter, the Periplus of Hanno, all right? Then we want to underline, if we will, certain things. Carthage, Gambia, Carthage, Gambia. The people that were, to a great extent, taken from the Gambia, where the people calling themselves the Mandingo, as well as the Fulani, live. You do know, brothers and sisters, just like the Bible talks about the tribe of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh having great cattle, so were the people of the Fulani also experienced with cattle. Now, why do I mention that in what we're talking about? To sit there and shut down part of the disrespect that's shown to even while people promote Kemet in Africa, Egypt in Africa, right? You know what one of the problems is? They try to say the Hyksos, the Hakushoswet, that were in Egypt during the timing before and after the Israelite Exodus. They were simply goat herders. You're a goat herder. But the Fulani, even according to Alex Haley's book Roots, were good as far as being cattle and herdsmen. It was commerce and commissary. Not, I'm going to sell you this apartment in Ohio under a scam. Not, I'm going to give you this credit fix under a scam. Not, I'm going to sit there and kidnap somebody's child, brothers and sisters, and not pay the people who work for me correctly under a scam. You see, the so-called conscious community, while running scams on people, such as giving people fake credit repair, such as giving them fake apartments to live in Ohio, for those who know what in the world I'm talking about, you are trying to snap on people being goat herders, while the people in the Gambia were known for being goat herders. And it was revenue, honest revenue, upstanding revenue. You didn't have to look over your shoulder, and while you're standing up there giving fake property in Ohio, you got your man looking all shady on the background. You didn't have to do that when you're selling the goat and the sheep. You can look a man in his eye and say, this is for you. You see the difference? So while you're trying to sit there and praise Africa, not realizing the people you call goat herders is heavily in the Gambia. For what it's worth, this is why in the book Roots, written by Alex Haley, Kunta Kinte was noted in the book, okay, as saying, why does the Tubab or the white people sit there and have the Fulani lifting hay and straw when everybody knows that they are good for cattle herding? Just like the book of Numbers says about the tribe of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, who was on the east side of the Jordan, good for being men who dealt in animals. They used it as a commerce. They didn't give out fake scams, make-believe credit repair. When you paid a person supposedly to do a job. Anybody knows about credit repair, you don't take a prepayment when you're already doing it. You do it and then you get the payment. Now you get the payment to do the job. That's how you know people are crooks in the so-called conscious community. So no, don't ask me to sit on such and such couch. I'm not going there. Psalms chapter 1 says, happy is the man that has not sat in the seat of the scornful. So if you want to maintain keeping, quote, your nose clean, if you want to maintain, quote unquote, being of a certain caliber, you don't sit down on everybody's channel, because every view is not good. I want more views. I want more views. Let me explain something. I saw this in a video that was presented by the people who came out with, like, I think it was Feds magazine or Don Diva magazine. The Feds watch YouTube as well. The CIA watch YouTube as well. Remember that fool that made a rap song talking about how he shot somebody? Well, once it was found out, they came and arrested him. So with the fools who, I just need more views, I just need more views, ATF watches YouTube as well. The CIA watches YouTube as well. The FBI watches YouTube as well. So when you like, yeah, we're getting more views, best believe maybe a fifth of them are not people who look like you, who greet you and say shalom or shalom or whatever understanding you have. Every view is not a good view. Know what it is. The book that I published, Giving Thanks to the Most High, has already gone through the Library of Congress. It's not a secret of what it is. Yisrael is not a secret as it was, say, in the 60s and 70s. Many people know of, quote, the Hebrews or the Israelites. So it wasn't like it was, say, back in the early 80s, the 70s, and the late 60s, when people like an Israelite, what in the world is that? You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out for edification purposes. Next slide, if we will. Black people, Venezuela and New York. The picture of the female is from the New York Times, dated March 11th, 2019. You would have thought She was from Brooklyn or Harlem or the Bronx or Philly or California. That lady you see right there, she's from Venezuela. This is the point I'm trying to make. You can't distinguish between the black people, quote unquote, black people that you see in Honduras, that you see in Belize, that you see in Colombia, and as we can see, that you see in Venezuela. And the black man that you see right there on the right side doing a presentation while living in the Bronx in New York City. See the difference? How would you be able to sit there and make that distinction? You would not be able to. See? That's the point with that. So is the brother, not to be haughty, myself, shown on the right-hand side, is he black and the person shown looking just like that person in, at least in complexion, or they're black Hispanic or Venezuelan black? Which one do we use? It's all bywords, brothers and sisters, that was given to us instead of our true name. We are the people that the Willie Lynch letter spoke about when it says we focus on future generations. The generation of that lady and the brother shown right there in the PowerPoint. So therefore, we can look at each other and be like, I'm not you and you not me. I don't like you, you don't like me. The former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, his name was Eric Williams, may he rest in peace. He had a philosophy that if the people were to take on it, it would have been beneficial. And that is all the islands in the Caribbean should be under one government. Trinidad said, not me. Jamaica said, not me. Barbados said, not me. Not trying to do that. There was a movement for us to go back to, quote unquote, going back to Africa. Some people did it. As a matter of fact, in the 1850s, there were actually people that were in America enslaved, shipped back to Africa in a place that they call Liberia to this day. So when you look at it, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes, when the Civil War was approaching its ending, Lincoln had a proposal to sit there and send the black people that were here back to Africa. Did you know that? Congress said, we're not going to do that. They know where the blessing lies for the society. You understand? They know that Alexander became great when he came in cahoots with the house of Israel. They knew that Pompey became great when he came in cahoots with the house of Israel. So Congress was not trying to let Lincoln get past that concept of saying, we're going to ship them. No, you're going to keep them over here because these niggas is our blessing. You understand? We are a blessing to those people. But us being a blessing to them, unfortunately, is in part our curse. Because it says in Jeremiah, Israel is hallowed unto the Most High. All that have offended him shall be held guilty. So you can't be the tail in the head. You can't be the slave and the master. You understand? You got to sit there, brothers and sisters, and be one or the other. And so when we hear things such as traveling broadens your mind and so forth and so on, that's the truth. But when many of our brothers and sisters, quote, don't see past their block, I call it in the biblical terminology, the Saul and David complex. Saul in the Bible, S-A-U-L, he didn't see around the corner. He didn't see the bigger picture. That's why Samuel the prophet approached him and said, it seems like a light thing, but you are head of the tribes of Israel. He didn't understand the position that he had. His successor, David or David, understood the role that he was to sit there and play, brothers and sisters. He understood the position that he had. And that's the difference in picking and having one to be the leader. This is why I pointed out, and I say this on this channel. May my mother rest in peace. I remember there was a family situation and it got real. That's all I'm gonna say on the line. It got real in the house. You understand? And I'm thinking at my age who to call in the house of Yisrael to talk to my mother about a situation. That's what I'm saying. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna call this elder right here, and I'm gonna mention his name is Chief Natali. So I'm refer to that elder as Chief of Chiefs. I knew to call him because if I called some other ones, I probably would have been told, tell that woman to stay in her place and to be quiet. Like, no, I can't tell that to my mommy. So I already understood once it came down to a serious situation on who to sit there and reach out to. Know who your advisors are in wisdom, brothers and sisters. You understand? So when we dealing, getting back into this particular presentation right here, the byword that we want to sit there and attack is the word black. Black in Hebrew is said as the word shakor. Now, there are many of us as Israel that go to Songs of Solomon 1 verse 5, says, I am black but comely, or I am black and comely, which is not a bad thing. But brothers and sisters, we want to point two things out about Songs of Solomon. Chapter 1, verse 5. 1, it was the female that was actually speaking. It was the female that was actually speaking about a situation that was going on between her, her husband, and the other women that her husband had. That's why reading with understanding for edification purposes is important. So now, the quote that says, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, when it says that man was made from Afar Maha'adama, from the dust of the ground. Brothers and sisters, shows you that the original man had to have been what is understood as swarthy, copper tone, if you will. But by calling our people black as a name from generation to generation, when we think of copper tone or brown people, we don't even see ourselves because we think black has become our name. So when you can go and say, okay, the soil of the ground is brown, well, that's not even me. That's the curse. You understand? Somebody typed, black was considered beautiful, still is in her eyes. The reason why, sister, I pointed out, just like in the movie Malcolm X, when they went to the dictionary about the definition of the word black, right? Is the fact, brothers and sisters, that when they say black, and the black is beautiful that you're talking about, it's two different things. When they call you black, they're calling you sinister and depressing. They're saying you're the color of feces. They're not saying you're black and beautiful. So now taking their definition and their colloquialism about us being identified as, quote, black, when we can sit there and see the soil as being the person coming from it will be copper tone or brown, we already been telling ourselves we black, so that can't be us. That's the point that we want to emphasize in this particular aspect. Next slide, please. Let's go. Shall we? This is a map of the Babylonian Empire. According to Sags, which is the name of an author, in The Greatness That Was Babylon, The Babylonians spoke of Jehoiachin of Judah. The same king is mentioned in 2 Kings 24. Now, why am I showing this right here? Brothers and sisters, we want to show this with the laser pointer about the Babylonian Empire. See, this right here, we want to circle where the great population of the house of Israel would have been. Right here in the black. And this over here, we want to show circled in the red. And we want to show this in the red for edification purposes. And you're going to see why with the maps later on. Assyrian was right over here, as we can see in the red. When Assyria fell to Babylon in the 7th century BCE, what happened to the Israelites that was in Assyria? That's a question I'm asking. Right? Ashurbanipal was the king that was defeated by the Babylonians with Nabonidus, with Nabopolassar, all right? Nabopolassar of Babylon defeated the Assyrians along with help from the Medes because Assyria was too hard to fight on one-on-one, all right? All right, somebody typed in, I was talking to one of our Moorish brothers, and he was trying to explain to me that the term black and white are terms of status. I am still looking into it, and I am asked, what do I think? What do I think about black and white in terms of status? Yeah, get the status of the color of fishes when they call you that. See, and this is no knock on any quote unquote school of thought, brothers and sisters. Let's look at the definition of the word more, right? Some say it means swarthy or black. From the Latin, moray. This is where you get the term Mauritania, which is one of the countries in continental Africa, right? Then there's some that's saying that the word more is from the word meaning navigator. So just like Africa and where it said to be coming from in terminology, we have the word more. That's two different definitions according to which one you're talking to and about. So now I wanted to address, thank you, my friend Doriahu, in regard to that. And speaking about the aspect of whether or not I believe that black and white is a term of status, this is why you find some people, be it the Morisites or others, that say that they're white, but they're not talking about themselves as being Caucasian. Brothers and sisters, that's a game that's being played. You know what that's called? Not acknowledging where your ancestors come from. So they use it for a term of status because to avoid this. Taxes. I spoke with them myself when I was in college. Well, if you sit there and claim this sovereignty, and if you can sit there and claim that, you will sit there and be exempt. I'd rather be taxed before I forget about the blood of my ancestors. You can't pay me off in that, and I'm speaking in general in that particular regard. I'm not calling myself white in order to sit there and be tax exempt as far as getting some kind of status. You understand? And so these are things, brothers and sisters, not to knock on any understanding, all right? That no. What one has done is just call themselves another adjective. For what? Money? To be tax exempt? Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just speaking in that regard. I'd rather use that adjective. Good. You understand? So now I'm not going to say the word black we shouldn't use as a name and pick the word white instead. I'm not a white man. You understand? So the argument that many have presented, I remember being back in college when I discussed this with people, was, well, they're really pale, they're not really white. Understood? Or they're really red or pinkish, they're not really white. Understood? But I'm not white either. If they're not white, I certainly am not. You understand? So hopefully that answered your question, my brother. So going back into this right here, the Babylonian Empire, as shown in the yellow there in the map, the black showing exactly in the vicinity where the house of Israel would have been, the Assyrian shown where the red is. When the when the Assyrians fell to the Babylonians, it says in Jeremiah chapter 50 that what? The children of Israel and Judah were oppressed together. So you had some of, quote, the northern kingdom and, quote, the southern kingdom in Assyria and some in Babylon. Somebody type, Moors deal with Islam, and in Islam, black Muslims are looked upon as secondary citizen status. Look into the book, The Legacy of Arab Islam in Africa. I want to compliment that statement by saying this, right? When you hear Arabs use the term abd, that is generally understood to mean slave, but it's also a slang term in Arabic talk in regards to the black man. The Arabs of old were noted for saying, respect the black man even though his head looks like a grape. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to sit there and talk about in regard for edification purposes. All right? Now, brothers and sisters, when you sit there and deal and look at this in this particular aspect, right? This being in the 7th century BCE, we want to show why we went into this for a reason. Now, this, brothers and sisters, is the 1st century CE or the 1st century AD. We want to show this with the laser pointer, right? Rome and where Jerusalem is. So let's go back to where we were. See, Jerusalem is over here where you see the laser pointer at, right? So when we go right here and we're talking about Rome and Jerusalem, where the Israelites were at, Tunisia is where Carthage is, right? As we spoke about earlier. Now, the Romans came and attacked the Israelites going south from the north. Here's the point in this particular regard. If they attacked the Israelites that were south of them, why, brothers and sisters, would you go north when an enemy stronger than you is coming from the north? That's my question. See, the Israelites did not go into Europe and become the European Jews that you see today. There's a guy by the last name of Butler. I forgot his first name. He's a reverend. And he wrote a book, and this is why it's not to hate on any other author, but this book is called, and I want to type it in here, The Black Men in the Old Testament. The guy's author's name is Butler. Forgot the other first name, sorry. So when I first saw that, I was like, the black man in the Old Testament. Oh, gee, let me get this. Garbage. That book called The Black Man in the Old Testament is straight garbage. That book, written apparently under Catholic or Christian interpretation of things, where the black man cannot claim to be the children of Israel as the son of God, as Exodus 4:22 says. He has to then say that the Israelites that we see are truly the Europeans that went into France. That book called The Black Man in the Old Testament says, end quote, the descendants of the Israelites, we only see the white ones today. So that's what that book says. So if that be the case, I want to sit there and ask brothers and sisters, as pointed out and will be pointed out in the description, can you please explain to me who this gentleman is? Who is Ali Jida that was interviewed on BET that sat there and said, as a quote, African Palestinian, calling himself of the house of Israel, saying that his people were during the Greco-Roman times scattered into Africa, then taken to the United States? You understand? That book is straight garbage. It's called The Black Man in the Old Testament. And I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm just saying it's garbage. Don't be fooled by the cover like I was. Because I bought that book when I'm like 19 years old. I was like, yeah, we're going to go into it. I was like, oh my gosh. Page 72 in that book says, in quote, today we only see the white descendants of the Israelites. Of course, you're going to have to say it because the white man ruled Christianity and you're a Christian. So, of course, you can't say the black man is the true house of Israel under that dogma, because the Catholic Church, while bowing down to a black Jesus and a black Mary holding a baby black Jesus, the same Catholic Church has a black angel Michael being stepped on by, pardon me, a black version of Lucifer being stepped on by a white Michael. Did you know that? While everyone talks about the Pope bowing down to a baby black Jesus and the Madonna, Mary, shown as a black woman, and I mean Ebony Hugh Black, like Wesley Snipes Black, like Samore the Comedian Black, there are pictures of the Pope bowing down to a black Jesus. And right next to that, brothers and sisters, they got a picture of Lucifer or Satan shown as black, stepped on the head by a white Michael. So much for the Catholic Church being your friend. So, brothers and sisters, these are things we want to sit there and point out for reason and purposes. All right? Let's go on, if we will, to show what we're talking about in this particular regard. Right? And as somebody stated, yes, exactly. Why would you run toward your enemy's army? Because the Israelites, for instance, when Jeroboam had issues with Solomon. You know where he went? To Egypt, which is in Africa. When Jehoiakim, king of Judah, when Jehoiakim, king of Judah, wanted to kill Uriah the prophet went into the land of Egypt. When the Israelites was fleeing from the Babylonians, they kidnapped, for all intents and purposes, the prophet Jeremiah and went into Patros in southern Egypt. That's why Jeremiah 43 and Jeremiah 44 is shown to be in the land of Egypt. Not here. This is not where the book of Jeremiah states in Germany or Spain or going up there toward England. It was shown to be within continental Africa. After they was fleeing from the people of the Babylonians, they ran into continental Africa. So in that book, The Black Man in the Old Testament, written by some guy named Butler, is horribly mistaken. You understand? Let's go on. This is a picture from the book God, the Black Man and Truth by Ben Ami Ben Israel. It shows a map of the diaspora of the Israelites from Assyria and from Jerusalem. So when the Assyrian Empire fell, some of them ended up migrating over to Northern Africa. This is also confirmed by the guy Stephen Jacobs in a book called Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa, right? And then you find Israelites going over through this way, scattering this way. And as we pointed out in another presentation, when you go into the book Babylon and Timbuktu, you read about the people of the Israelites that was in Yemen, that scattered into what we call Ethiopia of today. So when you read, for those who are interested, a guy named Tudor Prophet, I'm going to sit there and put this in here. Tudor, that's an author. He wrote a book about the Lingba people in southern Africa that lay claim to being of the tribe of the Levites. What is this black Christian talking about? They only see the white descendants of the Israelites. Who paid who to sit there and teach that? Because I don't get paid to teach what I'm teaching. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? Next slide. Remember earlier, right, before we close out, when it says here, we know what happened in time. Am I saying that there were no Israelites that went into Rome? Yeah, Israelites went into Rome. Thanks to Vespasian, thanks to Hadrian, and thanks to Titus. There were Israelites that went into Rome, but you're not going to sit there and find, brothers and sisters, the Romans coming with a fleet from Syria, from Greece, and from Italy itself, and the Israelites are going to run up into that. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to flee from the oppressors. That's what I'm trying to point out. You understand? I'm not saying that there were no Israelites that went into Rome. I'm saying the people that were responsible for the Israelites that went to Rome is Titus, his father Vespasian, and later on a guy named Hadrian. So now, going back, if we look, brothers and sisters, into this, we remember talking about the Gambia, and we were saying we know what happened later on. Let's see what happened. A portrait showing a black person shown as a slave by the Dutch in what is now New York. At that time, New York was called New Netherland. In the era starting in 1613, the Dutch had a slave post in Manhattan. New York was under the Dutch from 1626 to 1664 as a slavery place, and to the British from 1664 to 1776, and the Americans from 1776 to 1827. So why do I say earlier that it is not good for our people to be called Americans? Is because we became hand-me-down slaves from the Dutch to the British to the Americans. That's why it's a problem for us to be calling ourselves Americans. Together over 200 years, the Dutch would capture Portuguese ships in the date from the 1630s and sell blacks to people in New York. There were, however, in the 1730s, Portuguese slavers in New York. The Portuguese set up the slave trade heavily, and then the British joined after the Dutch did. A lot of studies concerning the Atlantic slave trade neglect the fact of the Treaty of Tordesillas, or the Treaty of Zaragoza, or the Asiento. Now, I want to underline these kind of things right here, because we did a teaching, brothers and sisters, all right, called From Madagascar to Manhattan. You may want to look this up, and I'm going to put it in the description. All right? From Madagascar to Manhattan. In that particular one, I've shown the actual treaties concerning the slave trade. So to the people who say, oh, there's no evidence of the slave trade, then how you get a thing, and we want to point this out one more time, and we want to highlight this for edification purposes, if we will. Treaty of Tordesillas, Treaty of Zaragoza, and the Asiento. Look that up. And then let's sit there and see if there's any evidence of what you call the Atlantic slave trade. You understand? This is why we study, brothers and sisters. Next slide, please. The Manhattan Matter. As discussed in the previous slide, this is the Dutch enslaving the blacks in the area known today as New York. There are other videos that touch on the subject presented as on the same channel, from Avaris to Alabama, from Ghana to Georgia, from Dahomey to Delaware, from Egypt to Virginia. All the links to these videos will be in the description of this video. So when this video is uploaded, you will see the description. In the description, you will see the link to the videos that we were talking about in this particular one right here, so you can get more information on the subject. All right? I can be contacted 908-587-4841. For those who care to continue to support, please do so at hkashub@yahoo.com. That's the PayPal. hkashub@yahoo.com. To continue to website the materials, that was not supposed to be a comma there, sorry, for the presentations, and to update the channel, I am asking those, not trying to beat one in the head, but asking those who are willing to donate to the PayPal, hkashub@yahoo.com, and it will be greatly appreciated. All right. Danite Publications. Oh, that website's not in use no more. Sorry about that. But nonetheless, my fault. It's danitepublications.com, not Danite Publications at Beta Gouda. But nonetheless, brothers and sisters, right? For those who are interested, call or text me 908-587-4841, or you can go to danitepublications.com. And for those who are interested in supporting via PayPal, you can go to HKASHUB at yahoo.com, hkashub at yahoo.com, brothers and sisters, to have the channel to continue and to update information, to bring more presentations, and to continue the website. Without any further ado, with the time that has extended what I hoped, but so be it. Hopefully it was edifying. Hopefully it was helpful to the people. Shalom. Have a good night. It's a work night for me. I still got other things to do. I hope that people like, subscribe, and share. And shalom. Somebody asked, can they donate by money order? If they want to donate by money order, the only thing is I'm going to have to ask for being able to show the English name and to be able to cash it and put in the account. Just call me at 908-587-4841. All right. Or you can even email me any question that you have concerning this kind of subject about donations. All right. I definitely will appreciate it and it will go to good use. Toda Rabah. Get the book that we saw right here on lulu.com. Thank you to the brother M. Morse who sat there and said that it is a very good book. The book that we see right here, brothers and sisters, Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 to 68. You can go to lulu.com and get that book. All right. The description will have the links to the videos that we were talking about. Shalom.